I've had trouble lately writing about new books that I've been reading. When I get very busy, my reading doesn't suffer. I always find ways to prioritize reading, but my writing about the books I'm reading suffers. So instead of, I've had a bad conscience from not doing enough posts lately about the new books I've been reading. So I thought instead I would do a short video segment about some of the things I've been reading lately. Most of the reading I've been doing this year so far has centered on Augustine. I've been teaching a class on Augustine's De Trinitate using this New City Press edition, the translation by Edmund Hill. So I've been reading stacks of books about Augustine, but one of the new ones that I read last week, which I very much enjoyed, is Garry Wills' the new Princeton series of Lives of Great Religious Book. Garry Wills did the biography of Augustine's Confessions. It's a really enjoyable little book. You can read it in no more than an hour or so. And especially good is his first chapter about the how writing and reading actually happened in antiquity. So he emphasizes the way Augustine had to be serviced by what amounts to a literary industrial complex in order to produce the amazing number of his books. And he talks, another theme that is quite nice in this book is he talks about the way both the Psalms and the book of Genesis provide the kind of recurring theme throughout Augustine's Confession. So it's a nice little book and a very nice new series from Princeton University Press. They've also done one on Bonhoeffer, which I haven't read yet, on his letters from prison. Speaking of Augustine and reading, I only just read this one, but this was published in about 1995. And it's a marvelous book about the way Augustine laid the theory. It argues that Augustine provides a theoretical basis for a culture of reading in the West. And it's a beautiful exploration of the Confessions and of the De Trinitate and the centrality of reading for practices of reading for Augustine's thought. Another new book that's just out, since I've been reading a lot about Augustine's Trinitarian theology, I have to mention the new book by Louis Ayres. You probably know his book on Nicaea and its legacy, which I think is a masterpiece. It's a beautiful book. This one, I had very high expectations of this one because he announced it years ago and I've been waiting for it for years. This one didn't thrill me in the way that the Nicaea book did. It's a bit rough and ready in places as well. For example, not to be too cruel, but one of the new sections in the book begins with this sentence: "With this chapter, a new section of the book commences." You've heard about shooting the messenger. I think they need to shoot the editor for a sentence like that. Still, although I had some reservations about it, and although I wished that he only actually gets to about... He does books 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, a little bit of book 14 right at the end. I sort of wished that there had been a bit more on... There's nothing on book 15 of the De Trinitate, for example. In spite of that, it is a very, very useful, very important book for anyone working on Augustine's theology of the Trinity. And there's some wonderful material in this book, so I highly recommend that, even though it didn't quite live up to my expectations, you know, in the wake of his Nicaea book. I'm teaching a class next week on some of the new global contextual Christologies. So I've been intrigued to read this little book. It's a fairly light piece of reading, 17 short biographies of important Christian figures from Southern Africa, West Africa, East Africa, India, Korea, and a whole stack from China. It's not a theological book, they're just sort of popularly written biographical accounts, but I still found it quite enjoyable. Since I'm talking about publishing failures, such as Louis Ayres' editorial support, I have to mention a tragic practice in this book. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but they're actually using boldface to highlight key words in a couple of the chapters, not in the main text, thanks be to God. I think that's a tragic mistake, IVP, but it's still a really nice, accessible little book. I think I'll give this away to someone after I've done my class next week. On to more important matters. I'm sure you've heard that the autobiography of Mark Twain has just been released. It was not allowed to be released till, I think, 100 years after his death, so it's only just come out. It's an imposing, great tome, and ominously enough, this is only volume 1. However, I've been enjoying this immensely. It's Mark Twain's irrepressible personality comes through really loud and clear. Let me read you one passage about people who cultivate a healthy lifestyle. It seems a pity that the world should throw away so many good things merely because they are unwholesome. I doubt if God has given us any refreshment which, taken in moderation, is unwholesome, except microbes. Yet there are people who strictly deprive themselves of each and every eatable, drinkable, and smokable thing which has in any way acquired a shady reputation. They pay this price for health. How strange it is! It's like paying out your whole fortune for a cow that has gone dry. Thank you, Mr. Mark Twain. It's the anniversary of the King James Bible, so I've been reading some of the new King James things. I have to admit I wasn't as excited by David Crystal's new book as I thought I would be. He's a great scholar of English linguistics. This book has a fairly simple procedure. He simply he simply read through the Bible and found words and phrases and idioms that have entered into English usage. And then I think he pretty much just used Google for the research for this book. He Googled and looked at the sort of usage of biblical phrases and idioms in popular culture. So I suppose it's not particularly profound, but it does have a kind of scientific rigor to it in terms of simply exploring contemporary usage of biblical language. A nice moment from early on in the book where he talks about the phrase, "Let there be light," and he refers to a hypothetical version of a politician from the White House, how they would have said Genesis 1:3. The Supreme Being mandated the illumination of the universe, and this directive was enforced forthwith. That was a parody by Alistair Cook, talking about political jargon. And last but not least for today, Oxford UP's gorgeous new anniversary edition of the 1611 Bible. I've been enjoying this immensely. It's been sitting here in my office, and any chance I get, I've been flicking through it. I was minding someone's baby a couple of weeks ago and read some of the book of Job to their 6-month-old baby. So I'm sure that did the baby and me a lot of good. It's a beautiful edition reproducing the original typeface of the original pages. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that on the video. It's also got all of the chronological material, and it's just a gorgeous, immensely satisfying edition. So I recommend that one to you as well, or at least to your library, where you can sit down one quiet afternoon, such as this one, and thumb through it. That's all for now. I'll talk to you again next time.